Started with a grainy, nearly indiscernible snapshot. Yet that's all it takes in the modern world. Just a few months after turning 18, Johannah Duggar was photographed standing in a Walmart parking lot with her palm resting on what was clearly a pregnant abdomen. The internet did not miss it, but a casual observer may have. The image was spread with growing panic, analyzed, and reposted in a matter of hours. "Wait, is that Johannah Duggar?" was the caption that started it all. Online, the response was swift and savage. Speculation became indignation. Throughout the day, the following Twitter hashtags gained popularity: #Duggar scandal, #Johannah pregnant, and ultimately, the ruthlessly pessimistic #purity is over. Fundamentalist blogs, fan pages, and former followers all had an impact. The Duggar compound in the hub of it all, Springdale, Arkansas, was engulfed in astonishment, quiet, and seething anxiety. Having learned to disregard most internet noise, Jim Bob Duggar, the patriarch, was one of the last to respond. "Guys, welcome to Rave. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up." However, he realized something was off when his phone burst with calls from reporters and whispers from old church friends. He opened the viral image while sitting quietly in his study, zoomed in, and remained silent for a while. The first person to cry was Michelle Duggar. She sobbed as she dropped onto a chair in the kitchen, surrounded by the dim hum of daily existence. Naturally, there had been indications. Johannah had been retreating for several months. She had stopped going to church on a regular basis, skipped Bible studies with the family, and even declined to be in the most recent Duggar family holiday special. Michelle had dismissed it as a time of youthful rebellion. Now that everyone was looking, though, her daughter's absence had turned into a crime. The older siblings had started congregating across the house. Joanna, pacing the hallway and furiously texting Johannah. Jinger, FaceTiming from California, voice shaking with passion, and Jana, quietly startled. Longtime estrangement Jill was already openly supporting her sister on social media. She was more aware than most of the oppressive weight that comes with inheriting a legacy that you didn't pick. Slowly but irrevocably, the truth came to light. It had been 6 months since Johannah had moved out. It was officially done under the pretense of enrolling in a nearby Christian community college. She had actually changed her last name, moved into a studio apartment, and began working part-time as a barista while attending classes online in secret. She had fallen in love, too. The family had known Caleb Martin for a long time. He was a boy who used to visit for youth retreats and summer cookouts. At 19, he had developed into a contemplative, steady figure, a long cry from the refined image of suitors who were accepted by Duggar. At a bookshop, Johannah and Caleb had reconnected. Through long walks, whispered dreams, and a common yearning to break free from the template that had been set out for them, what began as friendship blossomed into a quiet, intense romance. One wet February morning, she had discovered she was expecting a child. She had called Caleb after crying and laughing. For hours, they discussed what might happen next rather than terror. Marriage wasn't discussed right away. Not quite yet. Johannah was more concerned with taking back her story and granting her child the freedom she had been denied. Using a private Instagram page, Johannah responded to the news by saying, "Yes, I'm expecting a child. No, I don't feel embarrassed. I am building a life outside of the system I was born into, not only inside of myself. My daughter will hopefully be proud of me someday." It was the shot that went viral among fundamentalists. Evangelical pundits denounced her. She was referred to as a cautionary story by conservative talk show hosts. Disillusioned by the years of scandals, former Duggar family supporters now argued over whether this was rebellion or evolution. Reactions broke down inside the Duggar household. Jim Bob made an effort to limit the harm. In an attempt to protect the family's shaky reputation, he contacted attorneys, started writing statements, and spoke with TLC executives. Disownment and openly correcting Johannah's course were discussed. Despite her profound wounds, Michelle started to discreetly distance herself from the politics of it all. She would reread Johannah's early correspondence, follow her handwriting, and mutter prayers of protection rather than condemnation in the wee hours of the morning. Johannah Duggar was at a turning point in her life. At 35, single and silently bearing her family's emotional burden for decades, she recognized the echoes of her own suppressed wanna flee in Johannah's disobedience. Jill offered Johannah financial support. Joanna stood broken, yet pious, but unable to ignore the strength in her younger sister's voice when Jinger delivered baby clothes from LA. As the months went by, Johannah disappeared from the news, but the rumors persisted. She declined to be interviewed. She constructed a nursery with gentle yellow paint. She was employed at the neighborhood co-op. She and Caleb led an unapologetic, purposeful, and simple life. They took their time getting married. They went to treatment. Together, they grew. Then Johannah came back in the early fall. She came to the family home gorgeous, heavy pregnant, and unflinchingly anchored. She came with the facts, not with a request for pardon. Standing in front of her family in the living room that had once been used for chore charts and TV crews, Johannah declared that she would raise her daughter, Grace Liberty Duggar, with freedom, dignity, and honesty. Stiff with pride and embarrassment, Jim Bob remained silent. Glassy-eyed, Michelle got up, walked across the room, and gave her daughter a hug. Not a single scripture. No words. Just a hug. Not everybody agreed with it. Siblings separated from one another. Friends from old church stopped phoning. However, some started to doubt the norms they had previously adhered to after being moved by Johannah's bravery. A year later, on national television, Johannah calmly talked about faith, freedom, and finding her voice in a world that was trying to define her while holding baby Grace in her arms. She didn't criticize her family, but she also didn't defend their decisions. Breaking Free, The Next Generation Duggar Women, a documentary-style series examining trauma, transformation, and autonomy, was revealed by TLC. Soon Jana would leave the Duggar compound in silence. Jill started working on a book. Jinger launched a podcast on overcoming fundamentalism. And the once overlooked middle kid, Johannah, had grown into something more than a scandal. She was now a representation, not out of disobedience, but a rebirth. And there's more. Recently, Austin Forsyth and Johannah Duggar spent time together. They went on a vacation with another couple and had a good time. They spent time fishing as one of their activities. In order to share her experience with her followers, the Counting On star created a carousel out of a few photos she took throughout their travels. Joy's fans weren't pleased with what they saw, even if she proclaimed it her new hobby. "Baby, I found my new hobby," is the caption Johannah Duggar used when sharing her rotating collection of images and videos with her followers. The fishing for paddlefish was excellent. I appreciate the invitation. Despite the fact that Johannah and Austin Forsyth should have known better than to release such content following the negative feedback they received from their hunting excursions, they did so. "So happy you are all laughing as it's writhing, gasping for air," one follower said. "Our rivers and oceans have been overfished. Why must people kill so much?" "So I used to be a fan," wrote another. "How about keeping your hunting and animal abuse out of the spotlight if you want to maintain your fan base? I hope you killed humanely and returned what you didn't need. I'm not impressed, especially because you mentioned that it's a pastime rather than a seek for immediate needs." Another person wished that they would return the fish to the water body from whence they were taken. Nearly everything the Duggar siblings do has the potential to spark controversy. However, a number of noteworthy errors have brought attention to the family's internal issues. The family was scrutinized due of Josh Duggar's wrongdoings. When the events of their youth were made public 10 years ago, everything changed for them. Josh is currently incarcerated in a federal jail on allegations of child sexual abuse material, CSAM, which is already a serious situation. Their marriage, the amount of children they had, and the dynamics of their family have all been closely examined. After leaving the family in 2017, Jill Duggar and Derek Dillard resisted, which led to conflict between them and a number of Jill's siblings. In her book, she exposed some of the wrongdoings that Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar permitted while they were raising their 19 kids. Austin Forsyth and Johannah Duggar have been the subject of much criticism, particularly in relation to their hunting and parenting style. This couple's retreat is just one more item that infuriated fans. Relying on alumni, one of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar's most prosperous in-laws is Derek Dillard, but his relationship with them was also the most dysfunctional. Following their marriage, Jill and Derek distanced themselves from the IBLP's doctrines. Since then, the two have been exposing some of Jim Bob's wrongdoings, and because of Derek's work at the legal office, many people have come to believe him. However, many were taken aback when Derek took a risk regarding his work. During the episode, Jill and Derek made some stunning assertions that have garnered a lot of attention. Jill disclosed that her father had misrepresented the family's income and that she had not received anything for the show. Derek and Jill have hinted that Jim Bob would soon run afoul of the IRS. Jim Bob says nothing in response to the accusations. However, according to sources, it's a major factor in why the former cast member of Counting On's relationship with Jill and Derek never got better. However, Jill previously disclosed that they had been making every effort to get together whenever they can. On social media, several Counting On fans talked about Derek Dillard's most recent LinkedIn updates. Derek is no longer an assistant district attorney, as stated on the poster. According to it, he resigned from his position early this year. Rather, Derek appears to be managing his own office as an attorney at law. Derek's decision impressed many, who said that his prior position was in fact a stepping stone to his current position. For the past few months, Jill Duggar Dillard has been chronicling her recovery. Last year, the former cast member of Counting On experienced a miscarriage. The funeral for her stillborn daughter, Isla Marie, was attended by members of the Duggar family. Last Christmas, Jill and Derek also celebrated at the Duggar family compound.